Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football from the latest science dishes, breakout stars, and all the news in between. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And, man, we got a lot to talk about today. Big weekend in football ahead of us. College football, we got championship weekend. We got a huge slate of games in Week 13 here in the NFL. And then we got Thursday Night Football, which we'll talk about, which happened last night. And Anthony's very excited here.
Yes. So excited. That game was kind of bad, though.
It was.
Kind of bad?
It was kind of bad, but you know what, though? It was better than most Thursday night games that we've seen this year. And let's get right into it and why you think it was so bad, why I think it was kind of not that bad.
Well, I thought here's the thing. I thought it was bad just because it wasn't high scoring, right? It wasn't.
Well, I didn't expect that to be high scoring.
True, because the Vikings have a good defense, so you understood that there was a chance that this game was going to be low scoring from the get. But at the same time, like, the only reason that the Vikings had 15 points is because you got that late touchdown at the end. Outside of that, they were just going field goal, and doing very little to try and kind of go deep or kind of go for the big ball, right? Like, they were always kind of safe with what they were doing. You know, the longest pass play by Sam Bradford in the entire game was a 25-yard pass to Charles Johnson. Like, that was it. Like, it wasn't one of those, like, you know, they never completed that, like, deep throw that you wanted them to go to. At least with the, you know, Dallas Cowboys, you had a good play with Des Bryant. But it's one of those things that, like, I don't know. Like, I do like defense if it's a good defense, but I just think because the Vikings' offense is so bad, it makes it just look that much worse all total.
All right. Well, the Cowboys defeated the Minnesota Vikings last night, 17-15, and the Vikings actually had a chance to tie the game late with the 2-point conversion, but they failed. And yeah, you know, the Vikings, they had trouble scoring touchdowns the entire night, and that played a huge part in this game. You know, the Minnesota Vikings, they did take the lead. They're the first team to score, but they scored 3. It was 3-0. And when they made the first field goal, it was Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels. They said, man, they celebrate field goals here. Oh, yes, they do. Pretty much they're throwing shade at how bad that Minnesota Vikings offense is. But, you know, it was a very competitive game, and I knew it was going to be that way. You know, the Cowboys did take that. They took the lead late in the fourth quarter, 14-9, with that Prescott touchdown to Des Bryant, which came after a turnover, by the way. And then Dan Bailey extended it 17-9, and then Jared McKinnon caught a 3-yard pass from Sam Bradford with 25 seconds to go in the game. But I really thought they were going to tie the game, but then I remembered Sam Bradford is the Minnesota Vikings quarterback, and that's not a knock against him. It's
a little knock.
Okay, it
tiny
is.
Knock.
It's a little tiny. But I saw the throw. I saw the play of the 2-point conversion. There was at least like 2 penalties that should have been called. The left tackle, well, there should have been a false start on that.
Right.
And then there should have been a defensive penalty called.
Right.
Because the defender hit Sam Bradford on the head. He got hit in the head. Sam Bradford got hit in the head. And then Sam Bradford threw 10 feet away from Kyle Rudolph.
Threw it high, yeah.
He threw it high. So there's that. But
they were saying that it was what it looked like was they're saying it hit the shoulder pads, which did hit the shoulder pads too, but it went straight from shoulder pads
it went
right
from,
to head.
It went from I feel like it went from head to shoulder pads or shoulder pads to the head. But either way, his head got hit.
His head did get hit, and, you would have assumed that they would have called that. But, he also, like you said, airmailed it about 10 feet high. And they had the penalty right before that. You talked about it should have been a false start with the left tackle. They had that right before that, right? So they had the thing where they're backed up 5 yards before that. And now you have something that you have to kind of understand with the Minnesota Vikings, that their offense is kind of inept anyways. And now you're going to get them even farther back. It's going to make it a little bit harder. There's no guarantee that if that penalty had been called, because that doesn't make it a touchdown, obviously, that would have just made it closer for them to possibly score. And at that point, who knows? So it's, something that probably should have been called, but at the same time, you don't know if that actually would have actually led them to winning, or tying, I should say, tying the game.
Yeah, and, I kind of did expect this game to be competitive. And Alex, you and I all picked the Cowboys to win this game. And, I just feel like there's no way. It's hard. After watching last night, I feel like it's really hard to beat the Cowboys at this point. I do think the Cowboys have a chance to lose against the Giants,
right,
who is their next opponent, because they are the only team to defeat the Cowboys. But I feel like the Cowboys should have won that game because, that Terrence Williams, blunder there, not stepping out of bounds.
Right.
They are 11-1. They are the first seed in the NFC. They have the best record in the NFL. So, question I want to ask you, Anthony, is the Cowboys, the Cowboys the Super Bowl favorite right now? Are they the favorite to win the whole thing?
I mean, yes, but the only reason I would say that is because I would have said the Patriots before Gronkowski got hurt. Yeah, right? Gronkowski is the only thing that makes the Patriots not the Patriots, right? Brady makes it too. But he's the reason right now why, they might win the most games in the AFC. They may have home field go through them. But it's looking like Gronk is out for the year, right? Like maybe he can come back and play in the Super Bowl or something like that. Maybe they can have some miracle like that. But it's looking like he's done for the entire season. And once that happens, the Patriots aren't the Patriots. To where the Cowboys, they've got all their guys. And worst case scenario, if the quarterback goes down, you got the best backup in the league in Tony Romo to come in and basically be like, okay, cool, let's go win the Super Bowl. The Seahawks have been hit and miss. Saw last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They didn't look like the same team that they've been for the last couple of weeks. I don't know who else you would say in the NFC. Like, yeah, the Giants have been playing well recently, but I don't trust them as much as I trust other teams in there. The Atlanta Falcons, I still don't trust, and that's just a me problem because they, did this last year, so I just have trust issues with them. The other side of the AFC, the Steelers aren't the team we thought they were, so that's not the same thing. The whole AFC South is just trash. They all stink. No one in that division's good.
Yeah, they are. I can't argue with that.
That's the thing. And then nobody in the NFC South is good either. They all kind of are average or stink. Maybe the Falcons are good, but I still, just like I said, have trust issues with them. And then also the North. We all think that might be a division that you could see being decided in maybe week 15, 16, 17 because all of them are jumbled together. The Vikings lost again. The Lions are the leader in the division. We don't know if they're good or not. The Packers we thought would be good. Aaron Rodgers seems to be a good quarterback again, but the rest of the team, they stink. And then over the other AFC side, you basically have the Oakland Raiders is the only other team that I think may actually challenge them, but they're a really young team, right? Khalil Mack, Amari Cooper, all of them, Derek Carr, they're all really young players. And maybe once the playoffs starts, it's not the same team. So I would say the Cowboys, even though they have young players as well, I would say they're the best odds of being Super Bowl favorites.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot about this team. Imagine if Tony Romo never got hurt. Will we even be talking about him right now? Like their Super Bowl favorites. And don't get me wrong, Tony Romo did.
Well, what are you asking? Are you asking if they would be 11-1 with Romo, or what are you asking?
I'm asking, will they be Super Bowl favorites with Tony Romo? I don't know if.
I think. Yeah. Well, assuming everything that happened, right? Assuming Gronk still gets hurt, assuming the Raiders are still the Raiders, assuming that the Seahawks have been doing what they're doing, assuming everything still stays the same. And the Vikings or the Cowboys have Romo instead of Dak. Maybe they're not 11-1, and that's not exactly saying that Dak is a better quarterback than Romo. That's just Romo decides to make a couple of plays that Prescott can't make, like that kind of running around plays. But the problem also is he also puts himself susceptible to getting hit in the back or getting crunched, I should say, against Michael Bennett like he did in the preseason. I think they would still be at the top of it because I think they still would have a really good record because the reason why they were 4-12 last year and really bad was because Romo got hurt. So I think there is a chance they could still be a Super Bowl contender, maybe just not to the degree we think they are right now.
All right, before we go to the break, Anthony.
Yep.
I'm gonna make a bold Super Bowl prediction right now.
There we go.
I got the Cowboys in the NFC.
Right.
And in the AFC, I got the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, you poor thing.
I'm
going.
As I said, it's bold. I said
it
it's
is bold,
well, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm gonna put the Oakland Raiders in there. They got an MVP candidate. They got a really solid defensive front there, even though their secondary is kind of so-so. And the Patriots, they don't have Gronk. That's going to hurt them. Not many people don't realize how much that's going to hurt Tom Brady and the Patriots offense. Oakland Raiders, I feel like they're going to end up with the best record in the AFC. And I do think the Super Bowl will go through the Oakland Coliseum. And they are a young team, but don't forget the Cowboys are also a young team as well. And then Oakland Raiders, they have the second best offensive line next to the Cowboys. The fact that offensive line and that defensive front is going to be the reason why I think the Raiders could make it all the way to the Super Bowl.
It's a fair point.
Yeah, and I'm not going to put them there because, they're the trendy team right now. They're the popular team.
Right.
I legit think they are a team to be reckoned with. I do think they can overtake the Patriots in the AFC. And that is my bold Super Bowl prediction as of right now heading to Week 13.
I really so badly want to make the New York Giants the favorites. Not the favorites, but my team to come out of the NFC. I really want to do that. I wouldn't
be surprised if that happened because, we've seen it from the Giants. They've done it before.
Right.
We've seen it. And that is my bold Super Bowl prediction, Anthony, and we're going to take our first break here. But we're going to talk about Week 13 here when we get back here at the podcast. But we got a lot to talk about today, guys. So we'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. And we got a lot of action ahead of us in the world of football. We're going to get into at the end of the show, we're going to talk about championship week in college football, but we have to talk about Week 13 here in the NFL, and Anthony is excited. He has a very great look on his face. I don't know if he's looking at anything on Facebook or anything.
No. Here's the thing. No, it has nothing to do with football, unfortunately, even though this is a football podcast. Scrolling through Twitter and everything else like that, they have this thing with Draymond Green, right? Draymond Green, I love him so much.
Who is the Golden State Warriors and the NBA?
Yeah.
Because this is for the football.
I understand. I'm just saying, so this video, if he managed to go up for a layup and somehow simultaneously throw his leg up high over James Harden's head and kick him in the top of the head, and then he whined about not getting a call, Draymond Green. Anyway, sorry. It is just magical.
I feel like that's something we should have talked about in the sports
I understand. It's just magical. Anyway, that's why my face was like that.
I know.
That
was a great face, by the way.
It was just one of those things that's how did he get his foot that high and it kicked? Anyways.
All right. Moving back to football here. We got a lot of great slate of games here. In the morning games here at 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 Pacific time for the people in the East Coast. We got the Chiefs and the Falcons. The Chiefs are vying for a playoff spot right now. They look like one of the best teams in the AFC, despite being the 5th seed right now. And they're coming off a huge win against Denver last Sunday night. They're going to the Georgia Dome against the Falcons. I do think this is a very good matchup heading to the weekend.
Yeah, this will be the time where we can actually – maybe this will be the first time we think the Falcons, if they win, they can be like a legitimate team because you lost the Eagles, you lost the Chargers.
I'm saying a lot because we're in Week 13 right now, and we're still not sold on this team.
Like I said, the Falcons started last year 6-0, and then they didn't make the playoffs. I have trust issues with them.
Yeah, you're like Drake. You have trust issues.
Well, for other things. But no, we have something with the Falcons where – okay, so let's do this. We're going to take a game from the morning. We're going to take a game from the afternoon. And we're going to take either Sunday or Monday night, whichever game you want to do. And we'll talk about that really quickly to kind of get a good gauge of what we think of that game. So we think with the Falcons that could be a good game. For my game, I want to see what happens with the – the Houston Texans and the Green Bay Packers. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to make sure that Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. Because basically, we've had the whole thing with Aaron Rodgers of whether he's a good quarterback or not a good quarterback, whether it's the line's fault, whether it's the receiver's fault, whatever it is. And as of recently, over the last 3 weeks, he'll throw over 300 yards every single game. And he's had 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions over that time. So I want to see if he can still be that guy, because if he struggles against the so if he struggles against the Texans, then all of a sudden we kind of knock him down a peg or two. So I want to see if he can continue to do that. And with the Texans, please, Lord in heaven, Brock Osweiler, if you can do anything that throws the ball 10-plus yards, please do that. He doesn't do that. He doesn't throw the wide receivers. I have DeAndre Hopkins on my fantasy team. He does not throw to him. He hates him. Why does he hate him so much? Why does he hate Hopkins so much?
It looks like we got a fantasy football topic.
I'm just saying, just stop throwing for Dorowitz. Stop it. Stop throwing to him.
Yeah,
stop throwing to the running backs.
He loves him so
stop
much.
Stop throwing to Fuller for a little 5-yard slants. Stop it. Throw deep down the field. You are 9'7" tall. Throw it down. Throw it. Anyways, that's kind of a little detour that we went there. But my point is, I want to see this game. I want to see if Aaron Rodgers can still be Aaron Rodgers, and I want to see if Brock Osweiler can actually do good things, because that Packers defense is not good. So I want to see if both those quarterbacks can actually stay at a high level, and the other one get to a higher level.
You know what? This game doesn't really interest me a lot.
Okay.
You have the Texans, who are, I think they're pretty bad. I think their record does not speak for themselves, but, there is the old saying, you are what your record is.
Right.
This is the team that's the only exception. I don't believe they're a 6-5 team still. I don't believe they're a team that is over 500. They're lucky they're in that division. The Packers, I do think they're going to get back on track. I think it's kind of a long shot for them to make the playoffs now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did talk about the Falcons and Chiefs. I'm going to take the Chiefs in that game. And I'm going to take the Packers in that Texans game. But the game I am really want to see in the early games, the Detroit Lions at New Orleans. Yeah. I do think this is going to be a high-scoring affair.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a high-scoring affair. The Saints score a lot of points.
Yes.
Detroit scores a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think the Lions are going to win this one in a shootout.
Okay.
Over-under is 53.5. I think that has a chance to go to 60.
I mean, yeah.
So I think this is going to be one of the best games. I think it's going to be one of the great games to see over the weekend. But let's head over to the afternoon games here. There's 2 of them that really catch my eye.
I think I know the one you're going to choose. But for me, I'm going to take the Giants and Steelers.
That's one of them.
So I'm going to say that one because I want to see if the Steelers can basically continue to do well, because they've kind of been a hit-or-miss team all year. I understand that through some of that time you had Le'Veon Bell out. Through some of that time you had Ben Roethlisberger out. You had something where the team could never exactly get on track cohesively for Bell, Roethlisberger, and Antonio Brown, kind of all cohesively at the same time. But I think they have a chance to start doing that right now. You saw that last week against the Colts on Thanksgiving. This week against the Giants, you have a chance to kind of get a 3-game win streak under your belts. You had a 4-game losing streak right before that, but if you get a 3-game winning streak, now all of a sudden, you can kind of maybe surpass Baltimore, because you guys right now are tied at 6-5. And with the Baltimore Ravens right now, you've got the Dolphins coming up, who's won 6 in a row, so you have a chance for the Steelers to kind of get the number 1 seed in that division. And with the Giants, you have a chance of you're not going to win the division, right? That's the Cowboys to lose, basically, unless they basically lose all their games remaining. They're going to win that division. But at least right now with the Giants, you have a chance to kind of secure your playoff spot as a wild card, because it's basically going to come down to basically them. And honestly, the only other team that I can think of coming anywhere close might be the Washington Redskins. Maybe if the Packers can get back in there, maybe them. But you have a chance right now with the Giants to basically get a nice firm hold of one of the wild card standings.
Yes, and I do see the Giants winning this game.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be another high-scoring game. I actually think this is going to be game of the week.
Okay.
I think it's going to be the best. I think it's game of the week. I have Detroit and New Orleans as the second best game of the week. The game that I wanted to talk to you about, and you knew I was going to choose this game when I was going to the afternoon games. That was the Buffalo Bills.
There it is.
At the Oakland Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
The Buffalo Bills, they have a really good defense.
Yes,
and then the Raiders have a good offense. So this is like a strength versus strength game.
Right.
I really do think this is going to be a very tough game for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see if maybe this offense, and this offense is for real. We're going to see how well this team is going down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
They're looked at upon as one of the top teams in the AFC, and I don't think anyone saw that coming. Like, there's people that saw the Raiders as a playoff team, but we thought they were going to get into the playoffs at 10-6,
right?
Maybe 11-5. There's no way I would have thought the Raiders could possibly go 13-3, 14-2.
Exactly,
which could happen.
Yeah, no, 100%. Really could happen.
So we're going to see what kind of team the Raiders are at home, going against a very good defense down the stretch. And remember, the Bills are also fighting for a wild card spot. So the AFC wild card is very wide open right now. So this is a team that they cannot overlook here in Oakland. I do think it's going to be a very tight defensive game. I think, the Raiders' offense are going to score enough points because they can score enough points. They can win games with offense. I do think the fact that the Raiders' defense is not as good is going to keep Buffalo in the game.
Yeah.
I do think this has a chance for Buffalo to score some points, and the Buffalo defense is going to keep this team in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to have to pick the Raiders to win this game in a very competitive, close game at the Coliseum.
Yeah, same here. I'll stay with the Raiders to win that game. Okay, so now either the Sunday night or Monday night game.
Well, I'm going to talk about the Monday night game
on
Monday.
You're going to go Monday?
No, I'm going to talk about on Monday.
Oh, on Monday. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of think we should talk about the Carolina Panthers and Seahawks.
Yeah. Well,
this game has a lot of storylines, so we got to get into it. Remember,
that's the thing.
Last January, I think Cam Newton. There's a thing that really caught Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman has a bone to pick with Cam Newton. Let's just say that.
He has a bone to pick with a lot of people.
Yes, and I think last January, Cam Newton was seen throwing the 12th man flag, which is very meaningful to Seattle, the fans there. Richard Sherman did not like that.
No, he did not.
And then he said that is bad karma. That is why they're so bad this year. But I do think the Panthers, I wouldn't say they're going to go on the 5-game winning streak and finish 9-7. I think they're going to finish under 500 this year.
Probably,
They're just not that good this year. They still have a good offense. Remember, they went toe-to-toe with the Raiders last week, and they overcame a 17-point deficit, but, they lost that game at the end of the fourth quarter there.
Right.
That was due to their secondary. And this is a very intriguing matchup. I do think the Panthers are going to come out in a competitive fashion. Because they're not going to back down. They're not going to give up in the season. The Seahawks are fighting. Well, they won a division, but there's still a chance maybe they get the top seed. It's not going to happen, but they still going to play like they have that chance.
At least have a chance to do it, right?
Yeah.
And you want to stay above.
And you want to,
the Lions.
You
want to
do.
Stay above the Falcons.
Exactly. You don't want to fall to the 3
seed.
They're playing for the 2 seed right now because there's no way that I think that they can get the number 1 seed. I do think they're going to finish maybe with 4 losses. The Seahawks. It's not going to happen this week though. Nope. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks in this game. I kind of expect this. I kind of think the Seahawks are going to win this game handily.
Yeah, so I think the Seahawks win the game as well. The one thing that you have as an advantage for them is they're in Seattle. Last week they lost, but they went to Tampa Bay, which you forget sometimes that's 3,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more because you're going from high, like the northwest, all the way down to Tampa Bay. Like that's a really long ways to actually go. And now they're back to Seattle. Now they're back home, so they have a little bit of a chance to kind of breathe, sit in their own beds at home and kind of just rest. And you have a team like Carolina, like you said, Cam Newton, still a really good quarterback. The team just isn't what they were, and maybe that's a Josh Norman thing. Maybe that's just like an offensive line slowly getting worse. Maybe it's, Cam Newton, now that he has Kelvin Benjamin, he's not looking at all his other receivers as much. Maybe he's just zeroing on Benjamin a little bit more. But it's one of those things now that they're having a down year, which is fine. That things happen. A lot of times when you lose the Super Bowl, you have the down year afterwards. But considering that they're a bad team, 4-7, I assume they're going to lose another game going to 4-8. Now you get the Seahawks going to 8-3-1, getting a hold because with that one tie, oddly enough, it helps them out, staying ahead of the Lions and the Falcons for the second seed and hopefully that bye. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that the Carolina Panthers lose to the Seattle Seahawks.
And the Seahawks are that type of team that always end the season on a hot streak, and I do think that hot streak starts this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're going to take our second break here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and we're going to talk about championship week in college football. We got a huge matchups to talk about. A lot of playoff implications there. But we'll be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. So we learned yesterday that everybody's favorite tight end, Roberto Gronkowski, is potentially out for the season. He had back surgery, and that, something that's a joke about because something that happens once you get surgery on that, you kind of have to make sure you get that 100% before you get back. We saw in basketball with Dwight Howard, once he had back surgery, he kind of had to wait a whole year to get back to what he was at. So there's a good chance that he's out the whole year, even though sometimes you have those like miracle, recoveries. But there's also reports out now that potentially Gronkowski might be out for his career, right? Because, again, it's a back injury and it's really, really serious. That not only affects how you play football, that affects your entire career. Like, if you have a foot injury, yeah, you might limp a little bit or whatever, it's like that. But you can kind of work around it. Same with a knee or same with, like, a shoulder or something like that. You can work around it. A back is something that, like, if you mess up, that affects your entire just lifestyle after that. So that's obviously a very serious injury. One thing I realized with Senor Gronkowski is that he, is one of the greatest tight ends we've ever seen in the history of the NFL as far as tight ends go. Also, I don't know if anybody else realizes, somehow, oddly, poetically, Gronkowski is going to finish his career with, a certain number of touchdowns that, seem to be fitting him. He kind of made a nice little joke about once he got the number, he's like, ha, 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 he got that number. And that might be what he ends the season with and his career with, 69, right? Gronkowski, gotta love him. And I hope he comes back, right? Because I love Gronkowski. I love what he does. I love his anarchy that he does with. Just oddly poetic with the number of touchdowns he's going to finish his potential career with if this back injury turns out to be that serious. But now we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to go from football, from professional to college. We're going to go to all of the championship games, right? Because we have all of the
we're going
Big Ten,
to
Big 12, Pac-12, SEC.
At the end of the show, we're going to make our picks for every game this week or every championship game.
Every championship
game.
We're going to start off
including Oklahoma State and Oklahoma.
Right.
Before I begin,
yes.
I just want to say That is an incredible number of touchdowns for Gronkowski.
It is.
Can you imagine if it is career-threatening and he is Hall of Fame speech? Can you imagine if he has to be? I just.
They're going to yell and be like, Gronk, come here. Come here. I swear to God, you come here. Do not say that. Gronk, stop laughing. Stop giggling. Gronk, stop.
Gronk is never going to change.
No.
I swear, and that's why I love him, man.
He is the J.R. Smith of the NFL, though, right?
Yeah, I love him. Man.
He's the J.R. because he's had a championship, and all of his insanity we all love because he's a champion, right? If he wasn't a champion, then we don't love him as much. But he's a champion. J.R. Smith, champion, decides to go over and dap his boy. Goes over and daps Jason Terry. Doesn't matter. Still J.R. Smith. Still love him. Gronkowski, DDTing his buddies on stage, finished his career with 69 touchdowns. We all love him. He had a, for lack of a better term, sex boat, and we all let that slide.
We sure did. We let that happen. But anyways, we can talk all day about it. We could do a whole show on Gronkowski, but not today. We got a lot to talk about.
All right, so we'll start off. So we're going to talk about all the championship games. But we're
going to talk briefly about all of them. But we're going to focus on 3 main games that have a lot of playoff implications for some teams. The first one is tonight, and that is the Pac-12 championship game between Colorado and Washington at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. I talked about it on a sports show. I do think this is going to be a highly competitive game. I do think Colorado's defense is better than some people think it is.
Yeah.
They've been one of the more underrated teams this year in college football. I don't think their defense is as good as Wisconsin. I don't think they're on that level, but their offense is just as good. But it's not as great as Washington is. Washington is probably one of the best offenses in college football this year, behind Jake Browning, who is a Heisman candidate. Mm-hmm. I expect Washington to win this game. I expect them to win it very close, by the way.
Yeah, I think it will be a close game. This is one of the first real, honest tests that the Washington Huskies have had. They lost to a USC team that was starting to surge and, were doing really well. You beat a couple of teams that you probably should have beaten, even though you did know in the start of the season you had the whole game against Arizona, and that was a really close game. You've had some good games for them, and now you have a chance to basically cement your status in the playoffs, right? Because if you win this game, you're in, we all assume. Maybe they just decided to throw Michigan in just because they like Michigan. But, you had to win against Utah when they were ranked. You had to win against Washington State. And you had that one loss to USC. And you had the win against Stanford. But they don't look like Stanford, right? It's not the same thing.
That loss to USC is actually a good team now. They're a top 15 team. And they've been one of the hottest teams in college football. Maybe if they started the season out differently, we will probably be talking about them in the championship game. They actually almost had a chance to go to the championship game, but if Colorado was victorious against Utah. But, go on, Anthony.
No, I'm saying, and if Washington can win this game, and if Jake Browning, the quarterback, could actually do Jake Browning things, what he's been doing all year, then I think he gets back. I don't think he wins it, but I think he gets back into that Heisman Trophy candidate. I think he actually makes it to New York because I think right now he's kind of flown a little bit under the radar. You get something like a Deshaun Watson who's been rising. You still have Lamar Jackson pretty much at the top. But if he can show out and basically throw for 300 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns in a very highly publicized game tonight, then all of a sudden I think kind of the committee's kind of like, okay, fine, we're going to let Washington in, and maybe he gets to the Heisman Trophy ceremony, which, considering how Lamar Jackson's doing, you just kind of want to be in the room because it'd be fun to do that. And I think if he can play really well, then he has a really good chance of being in Washington or in New York for the ceremony.
Yeah, and I do think Jake Browning deserves to be there. And so we both have Washington in that game. And we're going to move on to one of the early games on Saturday, and that is Oklahoma State at Oklahoma. This is a huge game. This is probably going to win the Big 12. This is probably the Big 12 title game right here.
All right.
And, we talked about, Washington, if they win during the playoffs. I do think Colorado has a chance to make the playoffs, but they have a long shot. Yeah. I do think Oklahoma could potentially
everything's going to be chaos if that's
think Oklahoma potentially has a shot at the playoffs as well, but their shot is longer. But the thing they have going for them is they have a good loss to Ohio State. I do still think that loss to Houston is pretty good because remember Houston did start out the year, and Houston did beat Louisville very handily.
Yes, they did.
So I do think that is a reasonable loss. I'm going to take Oklahoma in this game.
Yeah,
this is a very tough game, but I do think
Right.
Oklahoma. I just think they're the better team. I think they have the better quarterback, and I'm going to have to go Oklahoma hands down.
Yeah, no, I'll go with Oklahoma as well. I think that Baker Mayfield can basically lead the team and do what it takes in order for them to win the game. You know, the points per game are about the same, a little bit more for Oklahoma. The points allowed, a little bit more for Oklahoma, but all of it's more or less around the same. The offense is a little bit better for Oklahoma, but I think at the same time, while Oklahoma State has been a really good team, I just think Mayfield will be able to basically, help them now win their, I believe it's 9th straight game in a row. So I think I'll take Oklahoma with you to win the game.
Yeah, and don't forget, I do think we're going to witness a potential Heisman candidate in this game. And that is D.D. Westbrook. He's not being talked about a lot, maybe because he's a receiver,
Right.
but he has been one of the best, if not the best receiver in college football there.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, we got one more game we want to highly get fully in depth about.
Mm-hmm.
That is a Big Ten championship game between Wisconsin and Penn State.
Right.
Wisconsin the 6th team, Penn State is the 7th team. This is happening at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Wisconsin has one of the best defenses in the nation. Penn State, they have a pretty great offense there.
Yep.
We talked about this on a sports show. I'm going to stick to my my pick. I'm going Penn State in this game.
And I'm going to go Wisconsin with this game just because I think with the defense, because you're basically going offense, I'm basically going defense. I think the Wisconsin.
Love offense, man.
I mean, I love offense too. I just think that because I've seen how good Wisconsin's been playing against Michigan State, playing against Ohio State, playing against Michigan, even though they lost 2 of those games, they've played really, really well. So, I think with that, I think it's something where Ohio State, even though they barely beat Wisconsin, even though Michigan, although they barely beat Wisconsin, I think their defense is so good and they're used to playing these games. I think that helps them in the game against Penn State, and I think they beat Penn State.
Yes. So we're going to pick all the games here.
All right, so
so Alex made his pick.
Right.
Made his picks yesterday,
Yeah.
actually. I was going to have Ben do this, but he's not here.
Right.
I'm going to recap Alex's picks. In the MAC championship, Alex has Western Michigan, Pac-12, UW, the American, Navy, Conference USA, Kentucky, Western Kentucky. He put Kentucky here. SEC, he put Bama, Mountain West, San Diego State, the ACC, Clemson, Big Ten, Penn State, and Oklahoma State. So I'm going to make my picks.
All right.
So, MAC championship, I'm going to go with Western Michigan.
Same here.
Yeah. How you like that dramatic pause? Yeah, Western Michigan. I'm going them right there. It's just Western Michigan's been they've been pretty good. We talked about this on the sports show. I do think they have a couple years. Maybe potentially be a spoiler. And Pac-12, we already talked about it, but I'm going with Washington there. In the American Athletic Conference, I'm going with Navy.
Same here.
Conference USA. I think I'm going to have to. This is a hard game to pick, actually. It's probably one of the hardest because these teams are kind of even. I'm going to go Louisiana Tech just to be different here.
Okay.
Yeah. And for the Oklahoma State-Oklahoma game, I'm going Oklahoma. We talked about this. In the SEC Championship, I'm going Bama.
Yep.
Mountain West, I'm going San Diego State. ACC, I'm going Clemson. And Big Ten, I'm going with Penn State. So what are your picks?
All right. So you're going to take Louisiana Tech. I'll take Western Kentucky.
Okay, so I'm the only one going opposite in that game. Okay.
So, I'll take Western Kentucky on that one. I'll still take Navy. I'll still take Washington. I'll still take Western Michigan. Take West Virginia. Take Oklahoma. Take Alabama. Take Clemson. And Wisconsin.
Okay. All right. Very exciting week ahead of us in football. But that concludes the show, Anthony.
Yep.
And we'll be right back here on Monday. I will be back. Anthony won't be back till Wednesday. And Alex should be back on Monday. And next Friday, Ben should be back
Yes.
I don't know unless something happens.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we'd like to thank you guys for tuning into the show. That concludes the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. And you guys have a great weekend and enjoyed this week's action in football.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.